You think she's just busy. You think she's stressed. You think things will go back to normal. But what if I told you that right now, while you're watching this, she's already made her decision? And every single action she's taking is her way of slowly walking out of your life without saying a word. The signs are there. You've just been too afraid to see them. Here's something most people won't tell you. Women don't just wake up one day and decide they're done with you. That's not how female psychology works. Instead, there's this fascinating process that happens, almost like a countdown timer that you can't hear ticking. According to relationship researchers, women typically make the decision to leave a relationship emotionally months before they actually leave physically. That's right, months. And here's what makes this even more critical. While men tend to be blindsided when a relationship ends, women have already grieved, processed, and moved on mentally before they ever say the words, "We need to talk." A study from the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that women initiate nearly 69% of divorces. But the shocking part? By the time they initiate it, they've already been checked out for an average of 6 months to 2 years. So right now, in this moment, you might think everything is fine. You might think those little changes in her behavior are just phases. But what if they're not? What if she's already started the process and you're just not seeing it? Today, I'm going to show you 3 undeniable signs that she's no longer wants you in her life. And fair warning, some of these are going to sting, but knowing them might be the only thing that saves your relationship, or at the very least, saves you from wasting months or even years on someone who's already gone. And stick around until the end, because I'm going to tell you about something that could completely change how women perceive you. But we'll get to that later. Let me be completely honest with you about something. As a woman, I've had those moments where I've made the decision internally that someone was no longer going to be part of my life. And the interesting thing? The guy had absolutely no idea. He thought we were fine. He thought I was just going through something. This isn't about being manipulative or playing games. This is about how women process emotional disconnection differently than men. While men tend to address issues as they come up, or sometimes not address them at all and just explode one day, women are collectors. We collect moments, we collect patterns, we collect evidence. And once we've collected enough, we don't just make a decision, we make a conclusion. And here's what you need to understand. Conclusions are much harder to reverse than decisions. Think of it this way. A decision is like saying, "I don't want pizza tonight." A conclusion is like saying, "I've tried pizza from this place 12 times, gotten sick 8 of those times, and I'm never ordering from here again." See the difference? The signs I'm about to share with you aren't just random behaviors. They're the behavioral manifestation of a conclusion she's already reached. And the scary part? Once you know what to look for, you'll see them everywhere. The first sign is what I call the communication pattern flip. And this one is probably the most overlooked because it happens so gradually. Here's what most people think. If she's no longer interested, she'll stop texting, stop calling, and basically go radio silent. And yes, sometimes that happens, but more often than not, something far more subtle occurs. And it's actually more telling. She doesn't necessarily communicate less, she communicates differently. Let me explain how this works. In the beginning of any connection, whether it's romantic or even just a close friendship, women tend to communicate with emotional texture. What do I mean by that? We add layers. We don't just say, "Okay," we say, "Okay, sounds good. Hope you have a great time." We don't just answer questions, we expand on them. We volunteer information about our day, our thoughts, our feelings. This emotional texture is actually our way of inviting you into our inner world. It's like leaving the door open with the light on. You're welcome here. Come in, look around. But when a woman has decided you're no longer someone she wants in her life, that emotional texture disappears. The door closes. The light goes off. And you're left standing outside with responses that are technically answers, but emotionally empty. You'll notice this in several ways. Her texts become functional rather than connective. "Okay" instead of "okay, that works." She stops using emojis or punctuation that conveys emotion. She stops asking you questions about your life. And here's the really telling one. She stops sharing unprompted updates about hers. Think about it. When someone matters to you, you naturally want to share your experiences with them. You had a weird encounter at the coffee shop? You text them. You saw something that reminded you of an inside joke? You send it. You're excited about something? They're one of the first to know. But when you've emotionally exited someone from your life, you stop including them in these moments. Not because you're actively trying to exclude them, but because they simply don't come to mind anymore. They're no longer in your mental inner circle. A fascinating study from the University of Arizona found that couples who were heading toward a breakup showed a significant decrease in what they called everyday mundane communication. Those little check-ins, random thoughts, and shared observations that seem meaningless but are actually the connective tissue of intimacy. Here's what this looks like in real life. You text her something funny. Before, she'd respond with laughter, maybe add her own joke, build on the conversation. Now, she might react with a single emoji or LOL, and that's it. Conversation over. You ask about her day. Before, you'd get stories, details, emotions. Now, it was fine. And nothing else. No follow-up, no reciprocal question about yours. And this is the part that confuses most people. She's still responding. She's still technically communicating. So you think things are okay. But response without reciprocity is just politeness. It's not connection. She's not ignoring you. She's managing you. And managing someone means you've already categorized them as something that needs to be dealt with rather than someone you want to engage with. If you're seeing this pattern, the communication pattern flip isn't about her being busy or stressed. It's about her being done. And the longer it continues, the more solidified that conclusion becomes. The second sign is something I call the selective availability phenomenon. And this one is particularly revealing because it shows you exactly where you rank in her priorities, even when she's trying to be nice about it. Now, everyone gets busy. Life happens, schedules fill up. That's normal. But what we're talking about here is different. This is when her availability becomes weirdly specific in a way that consistently excludes you, but somehow includes everyone else. Let me paint you a scenario that happens all the time. You ask her to hang out, she's busy, she's got plans, she's tired, she has to work, she has a family thing, she needs to catch up on sleep, all valid reasons, right? Except then you see her Instagram story at brunch with friends. Or you hear through mutual connections that she went to that concert she said she couldn't make because she was so overwhelmed with stuff. This isn't about catching her in a lie. This is about recognizing that her availability is selective, and you're not making the cut. Here's what's happening psychologically. When a woman has decided she's done with you, spending time with you becomes something that drains her rather than energizes her. Even if you haven't done anything particularly wrong, your presence has become a reminder of something she wants to move away from. Research from the Social Issues Research Center shows that women are far more likely than men to use what's called soft rejection strategies, ways of creating distance without direct confrontation. And selective availability is one of the primary tools in this approach. She's not trying to hurt you. She's trying to gently fade you out without the discomfort of a direct conversation. It's death by 1,000, I can't, maybe next time responses. And here's where it gets really interesting. You might notice that she suddenly has time for activities or people she previously didn't prioritize. She's joining new groups. She's reconnecting with old friends. She's picking up new hobbies. Her life is actually quite full and active, just not with you in it. This is what I call the reorganization phase. She's not withdrawing from life. She's reorganizing her life around a version that doesn't include you. She's filling the space you used to occupy with other things and other people, making your absence feel less noticeable, less important, less necessary. One of the most telling aspects of this phenomenon is what I call the scheduling asymmetry. Notice who's always initiating plans. Notice who's always suggesting times. Notice who's always doing the work of trying to coordinate. If it's always you, and her responses are always vague, postponed, or conditional, that's not a scheduling conflict. That's a priority statement. Because here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. We make time for what we want to make time for. Always. Every single time. When someone matters to you, you don't just fit them in around everything else. You actively create space for them. You protect that time. You look forward to it. And if something comes up, you reschedule. Not with a vague, maybe sometime next week, but with a specific alternative that shows you actually want to make it happen. But when someone has become optional to you, suddenly every conflict is a good enough reason. Every invitation is, I'll let you know. Every plan is tentative until something better comes along. And the cruelest part? She's probably still being nice about it, still saying all the right things. I miss you. We definitely need to catch up soon. I've just been so crazy busy. But words without corresponding action are just noise. If her calendar has room for everyone but you, if her energy is available for everything but you, if her time is flexible for all situations except the ones that involve you, she's not conflicted about her schedule. She's clear about her priorities, and you're not one of them anymore. The third sign is what I call the emotional temperature drop. And this is perhaps the most definitive indicator that she's checked out, because it goes beyond behavior and into the realm of feeling. Or rather, the lack of it. This one is subtle but devastating once you recognize it. It's not about her being angry with you. It's not about her being disappointed or frustrated. It's about her being neutral. And neutral is the opposite of love, not hate. Here's something that might surprise you. According to relationship expert Dr. John Gottman, who studied couples for over 40 years, contempt and anger in a relationship are actually less predictive of a breakup than something he calls neutral coexistence. Because anger means you still care enough to feel something. Neutrality means you don't. When a woman has emotionally exited, you'll notice that things that used to matter to her about you simply don't anymore. And this manifests in ways that can actually feel like relief at first, which is exactly why it's so dangerous. You mess up something that would have previously caused an argument, she just shrugs it off. You forget something important, she doesn't even mention it. You do something that would have normally prompted a conversation or at least a reaction, nothing. And you might think, oh great, she's finally chilled out, or we're past all that petty stuff. But what's actually happened is far more significant. She's stopped investing emotionally in the outcome of your behavior because you're no longer someone whose actions affect her emotional state. You've been downgraded from someone whose opinions and actions matter to someone who's just there. Think about it this way. When you care about someone, their stuff is your stuff emotionally. Their victories excite you. Their challenges concern you. Their choices interest you. Their growth matters to you. You're emotionally invested in their narrative because they're part of yours. But when you've disconnected, it all becomes background noise. Their stories don't spark anything in you. Their problems aren't your concern. Their successes are met with polite acknowledgement rather than genuine celebration. And their mistakes? They just confirm what you've already concluded. This shows up in conversations in a really specific way. Notice how she responds to things you share. When you talk about something you're excited about, does she engage with genuine interest, or does she offer generic encouragement that could apply to literally anyone? That's nice. Good for you. Cool. These aren't responses from someone who's invested in your inner world. And here's the flip side. Notice how much she's sharing with you. Not just the mundane update stuff we talked about earlier, but the deep things. The fears, the dreams, the vulnerable moments, the things she's processing internally. When a woman is connected to you, you're part of her processing system. She talks through things with you. She values your input. She wants your perspective. She trusts you with the unpolished, unfinished thoughts that she's still working through. But when she's done, that vault closes. You'll notice she stops asking for advice. Stops running ideas by you, stops including you in her decision-making process. And if you ask about her deeper thoughts or feelings, you get surface-level responses or deflections. A study published in the Journal of Marriage and Family found that emotional withdrawal was one of the strongest predictors of relationship dissolution, even more than conflict frequency. And emotional withdrawal doesn't always look like cold silence. Sometimes it looks like pleasant but shallow interaction. It looks like being physically present but emotionally absent. One of the most heartbreaking manifestations of this emotional temperature drop is what I call the conflict disappearance. You'd think that less fighting would be a good sign, right? But here's the thing. Healthy relationships have conflict. Not destructive, toxic fighting, but honest disagreement and working through differences. When a woman stops fighting with you, it's not because all the problems are solved. It's because she's decided that it's no longer worth the energy to try to change anything. She's accepted that this is what it is, and since she's planning an exit anyway, why bother fighting for improvements? This is the woman who used to push you to be better, to address issues, to work on things together, and now she's just agreeable about everything. Not because she's suddenly satisfied, but because she's already emotionally relocated. She's living in her mind in a version of life that doesn't include you. So what happens in the current reality feels temporary anyway. The emotional temperature drop is the quiet alarm that most people sleep through. Because it doesn't announce itself with drama or confrontation. It just slowly lowers the degree of care, investment, and emotional presence until what you're left with is two people occupying the same space but living completely separate emotional lives. And by the time most people recognize it's happened, it's already been happening for months. So now you know the 3 signs: the communication pattern flip, the selective availability phenomenon, the emotional temperature drop. And if you're watching this and recognizing these patterns, I know what you're feeling right now. There's this sinking sensation, this retrospective clarity where suddenly all those little moments that didn't quite make sense start forming a pattern you can't unsee. Maybe you're thinking about that conversation from 2 weeks ago that felt off, but you couldn't explain why. Maybe you're remembering how many times you've initiated contact compared to her. Maybe you're replaying moments where her reactions seemed muted, and you just chalked it up to her being tired. Here's what I want you to understand. Recognizing these signs isn't about panicking or making assumptions. It's about awareness. Because awareness gives you options. Ignorance doesn't. If you're seeing these signs, you have choices to make. You can have an honest conversation. You can reassess what you want. You can actually address underlying issues before they become relationship-ending conclusions. But you can't do any of that if you're pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't. And here's something else to consider. Sometimes recognizing that someone has checked out is the information you need to realize that maybe they're not the right person for your life either. Maybe the connection you're trying to preserve isn't actually serving you anymore. But let's talk about the other scenario. Let's say you're not currently seeing these signs, but you want to make sure you never do. Or maybe you've seen these signs in past relationships, and you want to understand what creates the opposite. What makes a woman want to keep you in her life, not push you out? Because that's really the question, isn't it? It's not just about recognizing when someone's done with you. It's about understanding what creates that magnetic pull that makes a woman actively choose you, pursue you, prioritize you, not out of obligation, but genuine desire. And this is something that most people fundamentally misunderstand. They think it's about doing more, texting more, being more available, trying harder. But that's not how attraction and sustained interest work in female psychology. There's actually a specific dynamic that creates what researchers call sustained relationship investment, where someone doesn't just tolerate your presence, but actively seeks it. Where the thought of you leaving creates panic rather than relief, where making time for you feels like a privilege, not a burden. And this dynamic isn't based on how much you give, how available you are, or how hard you try. It's based on something completely different that most people never learn. Throughout this entire video, we've been talking about the signs that she's walking away, the patterns, the psychological process, the gradual emotional exit. But what we haven't talked about is the reverse. What creates the opposite of all these signs? What makes a woman move toward you instead of away from you? What builds that kind of gravitational pull where her communication gets richer, her availability expands, and her emotional temperature rises instead of drops? That's not a small question, and it's definitely not something I can answer in the last 30 seconds of this video. but it is something I've covered extensively in another video, and honestly, it might be the most important thing you watch if you want to understand how instant attraction actually works from a female psychology perspective. That video is called She Can't Resist You, the Instant Attraction Trick for Men, and you're going to see it appear on your screen in just a moment. Now, I'm not going to tell you to click on it because you should or because it's recommended viewing. I'm telling you that if what you just learned in this video hit home, if you recognized any of these patterns, if you've ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly maintain interest while you're constantly fighting to keep it, that video has the answer. It covers the specific psychological triggers that create sustained desire, the exact dynamic that prevents women from ever going through that internal checkout process we talked about, and the one perspective shift that changes how every woman you encounter perceives you. What you learned today was diagnostic. What you're about to learn is transformational. And the truth is, you can watch 100 videos about what women don't want, what pushes them away, what makes them leave, or you can watch one video about what makes them stay, what draws them in, what makes them choose you over and over again. The choice is yours. But if you've made it this far, you already know which choice makes more sense. Click on that video now. Everything you need to know is waiting for you there. And trust me, you're going to want to take notes.